because the main two female characters in this play are Lady Macbeth and Lady Macduff, and they pretty much are the antithesis of each other. Lady Macduff conforms to expectations of passivity, piety, and being pure, and purity. And Lady Macbeth doesn't. She's transgressively active, disobedient, and immoral. That understanding of femininity is quite, it's easier to talk about than masculinity, because masculinity in this play is more complex. And I'm going to give you one way to talk about masculinity. It's not necessarily the only way to talk about masculinity, but I do think it will lead you to some interesting discussions and some interesting thoughts about Macbeth, the play. So I wanted to give you another triple to discuss this kind of idea of gender expression and gender understanding. So we talked about how femininity is typically understood to be passivity, piety, and purity. And for masculinity, I was having a think about this, and I think in terms of the way that patriarchal society has existed, it has always given rule to men. And that is to do with many, many things, but let's just take that as it is. Patriarchal society gives rule to men, and therefore gives power to men. So men are expected to be potent, and this power is expected to last. So men are expected to carry a legacy, to pass that power down as well, so it lasts through their families, through their kind of lineage. Men are also expected to be protective. They're expected to be kind of the guardians of their family. They're expected to be people who protect their kind of land, if they're landowners, their country, if they're kind of sent to war, their king. The king is supposed to be, you're a kinsman, etc. And men are expected to be impervious to many things. They're expected to be because they're powerful, in constant control. And the best way I could explain this idea of control is this idea of being impervious. They're supposed to be in control of their lives. So, for example, being powerful and like being protective, having a family, being a guardian, being a representative of their king, their country, etc. But also being impervious, being in control on the inside. So they should be impervious to fear. They should be impervious to weakness. And you'll notice that it's not a perfect 3 Ps, but I have tried to keep to that 3P in order to help you to remember it. And what I want to say is that masculinity is more complex than femininity, because we have two very different but also very complex presentations of masculinity. And what I want to say is that all men in this play represent this idea of potency, of protection, and being impervious, but they present it in either a moral way or an immoral way. I'm going to start with immoral because that's obviously Macbeth. Macbeth is a potent character, but he wants his potency to be omnipotent. He wants his potency to go beyond his own place, and he destabilizes, distorts, and corrupts the great chain of being to do that. So Macbeth yields to temptation and takes power in a corrupt way. Macbeth, because of this immoral lust for power, too much power, for power that is vaulting beyond his station, he fails to protect. He fails to protect his own kind of morality, his own loyalty. He fails to protect his king. He fails to protect God because of by proxy deicide. And he's ultimately a disloyal character. He is not a trustworthy, an honest character. And he fails to protect. And Macbeth is not impervious. Macbeth is susceptible. He's susceptible to corruption, to transgressive influence. He becomes fearful, he becomes weak. And I want you to think about what are the other characters, because this is Macbeth. What are the other characters that really represent masculinity? And there are lots, I think. Okay, you might have said Macduff, Banquo, Malcolm. I'm going to focus only on Macduff and Banquo. So let's go through each one. Macduff and Banquo. I'm going to call Macduff Macduff for short, and Banquo I'm just going to do a B, okay? So are they powerful? Yes, because they both remain characters who have control, and they are both characters that have nobility, for example, okay? Now, Banquo does die, but we'll come to that in a minute. Just because he dies does not mean he doesn't have power. He does. He has kind of respect, honor. He's honored by the king. He is a powerful character. And are they protective? Are they people who are kind of guardians? Are they people who are loyal, for example? And number one, Banquo is an easy one for this because he dies protecting his son Fleance, protecting his, for example, legacy. So we know that Banquo is potent because he protects that kind of lasting power for his line, and he is protective. Now, Macduff fails in his protection of his family, but we see that he loved his family. And because his emotions and because his masculinity is powerful, Malcolm says to him, you must dispute it like a man, he says. Basically says, well, fight it like a man, get revenge. And Macduff says that he will, but he must also feel it as a man. And this phrase, feel it as a man, is really quite a powerful explanation of masculinity, that both of these characters feel and love their children, and they want to protect their children. And what I'm trying to say here is they put their family before themselves, whereas Macbeth, because he is hubristic, he puts himself before others. And essentially, I'll just get to the big idea while I'm on it. Because Macbeth puts himself first, because he is an immoral presentation of masculinity, his masculinity is immoral and is used to destroy. His power is used to destroy life, to destroy growth, to destroy morality. Whereas Banquo and Macduff, they are preserving life, they are preserving their emotions, their morality. And they both are resisting characters. So Banquo resists temptation. He maintains his morality. He resists temptation. He is not impervious to fear and he is impervious to fear and weakness. He is not susceptible. And then Macduff, this comes from your knowledge of the play. If you didn't know this, please do you need to do some kind of research into Act 4 and Macduff and Malcolm. And essentially Macduff goes to England, which is why he leaves his family, to kind of join Malcolm's forces against Macbeth. And Malcolm tests him and basically pretends to be a tyrant. And Macduff will not fight for Malcolm as a tyrant, and that Malcolm understands. Macduff is a loyal man who wants the best for Scotland. So Macduff is impervious. He resists corruption. He resists fame, he resists money. What he cares about is Scotland because he wants to preserve life and morality. And that is the difference in these presentations of men, and that good masculinity preserves. And then what we absolutely need to understand is Macduff is the divine king, he's the rightful king, and Banquo is a direct ancestor of King James. And what Shakespeare is saying on a much bigger level is that King James is a worthy and stable king, and therefore a good example of kind of a masculine hero that should be on the throne and that we should give our support to.